Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Rodriguez. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Hey, just wanted to have you in today. You've been a mentor of mine and someone that I've looked up to for quite a long time, and just wanted to kind of touch a little base on, the real estate recruiting in the world. Obviously you've been a recruiter for what, 20 plus years now?
About 20, yeah, 20, maybe a little over 20 of my 23, yeah.
23. You kind of been all over. You've had your own brokerage, all that stuff. Can you just kind of get us up to speed a little bit of kind of where you started in the real estate game and how you got to this point right now?
Yeah. So it's, I fell into the real estate industry. I was young age, didn't know anything about real estate. In fact, the phone call that recruited me into real estate wasn't for me. It was actually for my wife at the time. So they called and asked her if she was interested in taking a position. This was at Remax back in '99. And she said, nope, not interested. Ask Sam. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? I don't know anything about real estate. Let's give that a try. So that's how I fell into the business. Started really from the bottom up, and answering phones, working with the GM there. The owner, his wife was a real estate agent, so working with her, learning every part of the business. Escrow. So they had all kinds of different departments. Accounting, and so. What that was really helpful is it helped me realize what I liked and what I didn't like. Hated accounting, hated escrow. In fact, it wasn't even so much the real estate industry per se. It was the people. I fell in love with the people, and so that's why really the recruiting attraction side of the business. It was the people that I met, and I enjoyed sitting down and meeting people, having conversation, having a cup of coffee, introducing them to maybe something that might be better for them, for their family, for their business. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what were you doing when you took that call? What were you doing at the time though?
So, I was trying to figure it out. I didn't know what I was going to do. So, out of high school, I thought I wanted to be a banker, and started working in a bank. Even my senior year was, I actually had caught up on credits. In fact, had more credits. So I was going to school half day senior year. Then I was going to an ROP class at a different school in a different town. From there, I'd go to the bank, work a couple hours there, and then I would go to a grocery store and work from 4 to midnight, and that was my day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And so thinking I was going to be a banker, thought, my stupid thinking at the time was, well, I like money, so I want to be around that business. And working in a bank to start, I was like, well, I don't like this. So, stayed in the grocery business. Ended up working with a friend of mine who made tools for Sears Craftsman. So it's kind of a, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
so if you remember Sears Craftsman tools. Yeah. In fact, I heard
my dad had a bunch of them.
Yeah. And so he and his dad and I think his grandpa, they kind of like ran in a family. They were inventors. So he started out of a little third car garage area. When I joined them, we were in kind of like a shipping container working out of there. Ended up moving into two-story buildings, and at 19, I was running a crew of 40-plus people at 19, and and so that was kind of really first leadership role at that point. But again, I still was trying to figure things out. So again, for real estate, I'm glad it fell in my lap because it's been quite the ride.
That's awesome. You mentioned something earlier about finding out what you didn't want to do at first. And recently I listened to a podcast. Have you heard of Ed Milet?
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure you know Matthew McConaughey, but that's what he was talking about, was finding out, finding out what you're not interested in.
Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of a tragedy for most of us is that we usually don't get to find out exactly what it is that we want to do because we just get into one thing and can't get out of that rut. So I really enjoy the fact that you're like, hey, this isn't what I want to do. I tried it. It's not what I want to do, and kind of pivot from there. So from that point, you got into the real estate industry. You became a solo agent, joined a team.
So yeah, like I said, I started in a staff role, so wasn't even licensed yet. Again, trying to figure out if I even enjoyed it. I did start to enjoy that. It was with Remax, and at that time in that marketplace, there was a fairly new luxury boutique that was in town. So that was like all the rage. Everybody was talking about them. They were very selective. I'm like, that's where I want to go. And so a few of my other former colleagues had gone over there. And so one day I got a fortuitous phone call, and one of my friends who was over there, she called up and said, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be joining a real estate team, and so my spot's going to open up. Are you interested? So she made the introduction. I took the role to answer phones over there just to get my foot in the door. They saw that I could do more than answer phones. So very quickly moved up with them and started running an office for them. Got my first recruiting position with them because I, at that point, kept on moving up. There was nowhere else to move up, so I thought I had hit a ceiling. And so I almost went to work for the top agent in that marketplace, and she's still, I think, really still that number one agent in that market here, 20 years later. But I remember her saying, hey, why don't you talk to the broker one more time, see if there's something else available. Broker was, he'd drive in from San Diego in his Rolls or Bentley or whatever he had that day, and come in usually for maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And so came in, met with me, offered the role to recruit. Same thing again. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Sure, I'll try that. And took the role. He said, just use my office, use the phone. Literally said, see you later, good luck. And I knew I just needed to sit at that desk and pick up the phone and make calls, and that's how it started.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. And in recruiting, I mean, that's kind of been a buzzword, I guess, probably over the last, 5 to 7 years, recruiting, agent attraction, back and forth, because people, which I find funny is that people are turned off by the term recruiting. But when you think back to us in high school and stuff like that, we would beg to be recruited to go play at a college, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody is looking at you being like, oh, you are good enough at this that we really want you. But now, you see it. I see it on Facebook all the time, people being upset about being recruited and stuff like that. But with that being said, it's really not easy. Like how did you find yourself getting so good at it to stay at it for 23 plus years?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't good at it at first. I mean, my first few, probably 2 days, I realized that how bad I was. I caught myself. So I was, it was so bad that the calls were like 20 seconds long that, I'm happy where I'm at. Oh, okay. And I'd hang up the phone and that was it. But it went back to my experience from working in my friend making tools, and I was hiring and firing with scripts. And so I realized, well, why don't I just write my own scripts? And that's how it started. So I wasn't, nobody taught me that part of the business until like around 2010. I didn't have any formal recruiting education or training until then. So it was really just kind of me. I had to learn it and found out I was pretty good at it. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I enjoy sitting down and talking to people and helping them out. And it's never looked back.
So do you think from when you first started until now, because obviously now after years of experience and kind of people know, and full disclosure, Sam recruited me, and it was, he recruited me, you recruited me in a way that wasn't result. You weren't focused on the result, other than just like the information. And you already have a track, what am I looking for? But like a report card essentially of being successful in what you're doing. Did you find that early on, when you weren't really good at it, that you were kind of so worried about every person you were talking to, like joining you, and then now you're just like, if they're gonna get the right people, or like, what was that mindset for you? Or even the mindset shift?
I'd be butthurt over everybody who told me no. I'm a high I personality too, so I don't like being told no, and if your friends tell you no, or that they tell you that you're you're at the wrong place, myself, or making a wrong decision, making a move to a different place, even myself. It wasn't easy. I would dwell on the no's, or people would even leave my office. It hurt, it stung. I mean, that part doesn't go away, but dwelling on it, that part, like you said, it's the not being tied to the outcome. That part has definitely changed. So again, it's what it's taken me 2 decades to learn. Is it's all about timing, right? Yeah. Timing for everybody is, and like you said, not every place is the right place for everybody either. So all you can do is make the introduction, right? It's I wish I would have taken the time to listen to others when they try to recruit me as well. Yeah. I look at many of those opportunities that probably passed me by. In fact, it's funny. About 2 years ago, I found a message from a founder of a large brokerage in LinkedIn. He was reaching out. I saw it. I read it. I don't remember it, but I stumbled upon it later. So maybe it was another missed opportunity. Maybe not.
Yeah. Have you ever? So I'm speaking from personal experience here. But have you ever ran into like the limiting belief that when you're recruiting someone, that you are worried that it's only in your best interest? Was that ever a limiting belief for you, or have you always been like, hey, this is great for first? Because obviously we're getting compensated for doing that, and it's one of those limited beliefs that I've ran into myself.
I guess for me, because all the other roles that I've been in, or having our own office, it was, is there a benefit for me in that? Sure. But it was always for me, that I couldn't go and present something or stand behind something I didn't believe in. So for me, no, I guess it was never, didn't matter what, if I was being compensated or not. I don't believe in something, I can't present it. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that for sure. What are you finding right now that agents are like? Obviously the market's shifting in a couple different ways, and it has actually for the last few years, of people getting in and all of a sudden closing a bunch of deals without much knowing really what they were doing, and then they close a bunch of deals. But now that's kind of coming back where like limited inventory, people are struggling a little bit. What do you find right now that agents are looking for most?
It's every agent is different, so I think it depends on each agent. There's some agents that are looking for, like you're saying, if they're, over the past few years, if they were doing, 4 or 5 transactions a year and they were happy with that, they're not doing 4 or 5 transactions anymore, right? Like you said, less inventory, challenging market, interest rates are high, buyers are sitting on the sidelines, sellers aren't selling because we're at 2.5% rates. Yeah. So I think people like that. Some of those agents are looking for where can I save money, right? Which is not. I don't say it's the wrong approach. Ultimately, I believe it's the wrong approach. I think they should be looking for, if they are looking for a new home, which, that's usually what happens is people start to blame, right? It's not me, it's my brokerage. So if I go over there, my business is definitely going to go up. Well, could do that, sure. But it's if they're looking for a different opportunity, I am finding that some are looking for, well, where can I put most money in my pocket? Where am I not going to have a monthly fee, right, if they have a monthly fee? So I think that's definitely on some people's mind. The other part is, well, which I think is the right approach, is maybe they're looking for a team, right, to be on a productive team that's driving business, joining a brokerage that is providing leads, and actually training and helping agents to be better agents and be more profitable. And then you got, there's, the what's become a new, I don't want to call it a new norm. I think it's becoming more of the new norm. Is agents that are now getting involved in the attraction side of the business, right? Historically, you look back 20, 30, 40 years ago, like you said, recruiting is not a bad word. All businesses have to grow and should be growing. But it was really the broker, the manager, their general managers, or, a paid recruiter, somebody that was going out and building that company. Now, with the shift that's happened over the past, call it 10 years or so, where agents have the opportunity to be able to utilize their own influence and build their own organization within a brokerage. So I think it's, I think we still have a lot of way to grow there. The majority of agents are not at those types of brokerages yet, but I do believe that it'll continue to shift that way.
Yeah, and it is a challenge. Like when I say, like, recruiting's hard. Like when you're, and that is the challenge that, obviously we were both at a previous company that was heavy on recruiting. That's what I want. I shouldn't say heavy. It was because from my understanding, it's like the top 1% or only 1% are actually participating, or even 5% that are participating on a higher level. But it is like you get into it and you think, oh, I can do that. I get a chance to do this, get excited about it. I sure did. Because I was almost out of the industry completely because I was kind of looking at like, all right, well, I can be, you kind of go through that timeline, the life cycle of a real estate agent. You get in, you're maybe join a team when you get out there, then you go solo, and then you maybe become a team leader. And then you kind of get to that point where, okay, now next step, is it broker? Is it property management? I had zero interest in property management. And I started looking at like all the stuff that came along with being a broker, and I was like, man, I don't know that I want that responsibility. And that's what was at the time the former company came into play, and I was like, wait, I can do this and grow and be influential. Multi-state, multi-country, and that really got me excited. But at the same time, it's way harder than I thought it was going to be, because I got it so quickly in my head. Not saying that I'm smart, it just hit me at, like you said, the right time. The right time, I was like, oh, I can do this, I can leverage this. And then I got to a point where, it's way harder than it seems. I mean, do you see, obviously you've had all this experience to get where you're at now, but like, do you have any recommendations for anybody who's just starting out, let's say in the last year or two, to start recruiting people?
I mean, it's really, it's, if it's something where somebody wants to spend the time and energy doing that, then make a business plan, right? That people have business plans for your sales business or any other business. This should be no different if that's where they're going to spend some time and energy. And it doesn't have to be, a full blown, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. We've heard of some other people only spend an hour, 2 hours a week. It still could work. I mean, again, it's. I also back up and say that just being a great agent, a human being, you're naturally going to attract other quality people to you anyway. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Is just go out there, do great deals. People are going to start asking, hey, tell me about your brokerage. Never heard of it, or what's that all about over there? And these conversations happen at every company, right? It doesn't matter if it's a brand new company, or 100+ year old companies. If somebody's just not familiar, they're gonna start asking questions and inquire.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Facebook because it happens like on Facebook groups. It's everybody's recruiting.
Yeah.
But some are being called out more than others for the practices and stuff like that. And I get it. I really do. But I mean, the reason that I ended up even thinking about joining the previous one was I was recruited by a local brokerage here that I had never heard of, and I never even thought that I would even be moving anywhere because I was at 100% boutique brokerage. I was like, I felt good because I was the top producer there, and I was the only one ever in the office.
Yeah.
But it was, and when I say only one ever in the office was like as big as this studio, and like no windows or anything. I was the only one ever in there. But I never thought that I would go anywhere. But that kind of sparked me that there's other things out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now speaking of the office space, a lot of these companies that we're working with and have been with don't necessarily have a physical office. Are you getting a lot of objections to not having a physical office anymore?
It comes up. I think it's just it's been the norm for so long. But the pandemic changed a lot of that too. So I think it's what's allowed, I think, a lot of these cloud-based companies to grow even more so, because they were the only ones that were really kind of open for business for those couple of years. So, does the question come up? Sure. It's not really where nobody's hung up on it. It's not to say that in the models that I'm familiar with that are cloud-based, agents can still have their own office, right? Yeah. So if somebody wants to have or already has their own office or an existing team, existing brokerage, it doesn't mean that they have to get rid of it. It just means that that the cloud-based companies are not going to participate in those costs, which allows them to be able to turn around and do things like revenue share. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what's I in my market where I came from. Everybody wants to be on this one particular street. Right? It's kind of like the rodeo drive of the desert, and so they may not, even if they're not paying for an office space in there, they're paying through their splits. They're paying through maybe no caps and things like that. So. The thing to weigh is, well, if you want, you love that street so much, and well, why do you have to be in that space that your broker picked out? Mm-hmm. Why not be in your own space or your own private space or a space with other agents that you like, that you want to be in business with, and still have the savings in that manner, and being, potentially have that space, paid for through their influence and attraction and revenue share and equity shares and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Can you talked about splits and caps. Can you go over that? Because I was surprised actually to the number of agents that I talked to that aren't familiar with a split, and even especially a cap, that they may be on a split, but the cap is something that they are unsure when we start talking about it.
Yeah, caps are still foreign to a lot of people, right? I mean, most of all the traditional brokerages don't have a cap. I've known agents, top producing agents that are paying their broker hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, to me, it's insane. Mm. But when I thought about it, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't that crazy because that was just, again, it was normal. I mean, that was what people did. I mean, if you think about it, going way back, people were on 50-50 splits way back when, right? But the industry's changed so much that the agents are also squeezing the broker. And so agents have also, not only are they squeezing their broker to get more of the commission, but the brokerage has also lost a lot of the value, right? There's these traditional brokerages. And so they're fighting that, and that's why I've seen, the 100% companies growing the way that they've grown. Brokerages have just lost that value. Agents are trying to retain more of those dollars. But yeah, as far as having a cap, I mean, it's really a reward for your business. It's which becomes part of the attraction. Is, you know, if you're a top producing agent and you're hitting certain levels of business, why, you know, other than the glass award or a plaque on the wall, why not get these other economic rewards back to you?
Yeah. And but the cap itself is, so if you're on a 85-15, 80-20, 70-30, whatever the split is, 90-10, a lot of brokerages you're saying are not, that's forever. You're
right.
You're paying
Yeah.
your 10%,
Yep.
10 to 30% every time.
Yep. And then franchise fees sometimes on top of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes unlimited franchise fees. Sometimes the franchise fee might be capped, but that's still extra dollars. So even that 80-20 might not be an 80-20, it might be a 74 instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And well, then, but the cap would be like, hey, you're going to pay me this 80-20 until you hit this number.
Yeah, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 10,000, whatever
Yeah.
number they come up with, which we all know at the end of the day, you know, there really is no 100%, right? There's still the brokers got to make money to be able to provide something and be able to keep the doors open. In some cases, that something is very little, and in very few instances, that something is quite a bit. But it's being able to provide for the agent what they need.
Yeah. So with all these equity share, revenue share, and all that are starting to kind of hit the market now, and over the last, I guess it's been longer than a decade because there's been profit share and things like that. But now it's kind of evolving. Where do you see, like, do you see that happening even more so as brokerages pop up, or maybe even existing brokerages? Because I know we've talked about before that you've seen some existing brokerages.
We've seen some of the you know, some existing brokerages and either trying to make changes to their model, but not entirely because they can't. Yeah. Or if they are, they've really got to go back to the drawing board to really redo their entire model. But we're seeing, you know, the 100-year-old national company, international company, providing, you know, a reward of revenue share, but like one level, right?
Yeah.
Still better than what they were providing,
Yeah.
but it is being something that's being offered. They see the value or the brokerage sees the value to be able to help and incentivize for growth. So again, it goes back to recruiting again, right? And then I've seen numerous and probably another handful of brokerages popping up all over the U.S. and even some popping up out of a country that are now built as a revenue share, cloud-based, and in some cases equity share models as well. So I do think, you know, again, it's not the norm yet. I think we'll continue to see it move that direction. And again, right now, because of the way the market is too, agents are more inclined to look at different options than maybe they were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I talked earlier about kind of like people have like this negative connotation with the rev share idea. The best way I try to describe it to people is that, like, if you're reading a blog and someone is telling you like, hey, here's the best 10 supplements that you should be taking for, you know, high blood pressure or whatever, and there's links in all those, and you click on that link and you purchase through that, the author of that blog is likely getting paid for it.
Yeah.
They're introducing you to something that, and, you know, it's an affiliate link. Some people are familiar with that term, some are not. But that's the best way I can try and describe it to people, because it's, you know, if you recommended the movie to somebody and they went and watched it, if you got compensated for that type of deal, like, how would you best explain that to someone who's like, well, I don't want to make money off of somebody else's production?
Yeah.
Because I've gotten that objection before.
You know, it's really not that they're getting compensated off of somebody else's. It's not taken away from that agent, right? But I get your example. I used to use the Starbucks example, right? Because I'm usually walking around with my Starbucks cup of coffee, and that's free advertising for them, right? Yeah. They don't give me gift cards. They don't send me nothing. So I mean, and as much as I've, you know, will advertise that for them by walking around always, you know, with that in their hand, they're never going to send me anything. So it's really, you know, I've always explained, because I've been in profit share models as well. My explanation was the same then that it is now, which is it's a reward for helping the company grow. That's it. So, you know, again, is it better to be at a company that's going to at least, you know, have that opportunity, or at a company that maybe they give you at a $5 Starbucks gift card in that example, maybe they take you to lunch. Maybe that's probably it. You know, that's not a great recruiting or retention program in itself. You know, when I had my own brokerage, we didn't have revenue share or equity shares. And so one of the things I tried to do to keep my agents close, I take them to, you know, try and take them to fancy dinners and hope and pray that they would stick around, and did that work when I you know, left and did, you know, joined another brokerage. didn't work with those few top agents because they didn't follow. So, but again, if you're helping somebody really build wealth and building for their future, that's the difference, right? So people aren't going to remember the dinner maybe that they took you to, but somebody who if I was introduced to a model that helped me to be able to build wealth and help me in my future and my kids, my family, then that's something that's going to be more attractive than, again, a free dinner or a Starbucks.
Yeah, I guess the messaging really plays a massive part in that, on how it's delivered, and then also how it's received. On like you're talking about building massive wealth for somebody, and someone might be taking it in as, oh, you just want to recruit me because you're going to get paid. But even in that case, I mean, there's people that will recruit to companies that don't compensate at all because they just believe in it.
Yeah.
But it's funny that there's like almost like you get extra points for doing that. Like you're doing it for like out of the own good and kindness of your heart because you aren't being compensated. So that's pretty interesting. Do you see any downside in a rev share, profit share, equity share model for just, I guess, the integrity of real estate agents, realtors, and agents alike?
Downside, no. I mean, I think it's really quite the opposite. I think the downside is if the brokerage is not offering you up something extra, I think that's the negative. And again, but people are just so stuck in their ways, and again, back to timing. But I just don't think it's. I don't see that there's any negative. I think it's if a brokerage is they're interested in growth, I think that's part of it. Is it helps that growth. But sharing in the wealth, right? I mean, that's been a saying we've heard for many times. Just hasn't been really stated in the brokerage business because brokerages, the broker owner gets their little sliver of the pie now. Mm-hmm. Used to be much bigger, as I mentioned, decades ago. But now that the brokerages can't even survive on just the commission splits anymore. And so again, if the model is built in a way where it is profitable and they're willing to share in those profits and revenues, even better. But yeah, I mean, these brokerages now, or most, especially small brokerages, have to rely on ancillary services. Without them, I mean, it's very difficult to be profitable if you have, here for a small boutique brokerage with less than 50 agents.
Okay. Yeah, I think you mentioned that to me one time, that like 50 kind of happens to be the magic number.
Kind of where your profit, the profitability really starts to level out. It's tough. I mean, if you got 10, 20 agents and you don't want to grow, you're reliant on those 10, 20 to continue to either be productive or get them into production, and keep them there. Because then they're also getting recruited out there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've thought about in this model is that it's compared to the traditional model is that whether you're a team leader or a broker owner or broker, it's very difficult to give everything that you can to your agents, because essentially you could be training your competition. In a model where, even if you join a team and you're on this person's team and they're collecting a split from you, and they train you to be better than they are, but if they had recruited you and they leave your team and you're still being compensated, and not only are you being compensated, but you have the ability to create them to have a better team than you even have, you're compensated even more by pouring into that person. Where in a traditional model, if they leave your team and remain in the same brokerage, like you can't, you're cut off now.
Yep.
And so I always find this kind of a dichotomy where you're like, what should I do? How can I give everything to this person? And that's been a challenge for me. One of the brokerages I was at years ago, I told him that I wanted to make this agent better than I would ever be. And he was like, well, what if she leaves your team? And I was like, then I wanted her to get better. And he was like, well, you need to be compensated. And that sticks with me now, is that he was my broker, right? So what did he want me to become?
Yeah.
So that's, things that I think about as a new agent, not even as a new agent, as an agent right now that might be looking to move, might be just on the fence, might just be wanting more. What would you recommend that they look into as choosing a forever brokerage?
Yeah, I think it's like I said earlier, it depends on each agent. So it's really trying to find out what's most important to them. But in making that decision, it's not searching for a brokerage of who's going to save me the most amount of money. It's who's going to help me. Who's the broker who's really going to invest in me, What are they going to provide me for what I'm paying them? Again, it's you asked a question about revenue share and equity share. Again, I just think it's still better to be at a brokerage that has that than that doesn't. So then that limits the options out there. So it doesn't mean that some of these other companies may not be the right place. Some of these agents are if they're looking for luxury only. There's some companies that are well known just for luxury. But again, at the same time, I don't think that it's they're putting themselves in a box. And so I think the more options they make available to themselves, the better for themselves in their career. Met an agent this week, brand new, literally just turned 18. Has been working in this brokerage as an employee before he got his license. And he's got that go-getter attitude. The time and energy he's spending as an employee, he realizes if I put that same time and energy into my own business, which he is now, what that can make for him. And I look at that and I go, man, I wish I was 18 again. I wish I would have started at a rev share, equity share company, because my career would look even a whole lot better today than it does. It just didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
I got that taste of that passive income through agent attraction in that first attraction gig that I was mentioning, and it's never stopped since. So right, so being a Keller Williams team leader, being having my own company or some of these other companies that were also vesting and being able to continue to earn, right? I'm like, well, again, same thing. If every one of these companies I'd been at also kept rewarding me for me helping them grow as I did, that would also look very different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one thing I like that you said is that, basically it's not like there's not one brokerage that's meant for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably helped you as well grow as fast as you have in both companies that I've known you in, is that, you're not like forcing the square peg in a round hole. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. I think that's a big thing to remember as well, is that somebody told me years ago, like if you have to convince somebody now, you're gonna have to convince them in 5 years and keep doing that. And is that work worth the people that you could truly be helping, because this one person just wants to, that wasn't the right fit to begin with, and now you have to keep like reaffirming and
that's usually the key right there is, especially when for an existing broker owner out there or team leaders, a lot of times we want the success more for the agent themselves. And that's a tough place to be in, because you can't make them, right? It doesn't matter how much time and energy you spend, right? Like you're saying, you're probably spending the energy in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to find people. That's why I don't call anybody and everybody that the thousands of people that I know. I don't call all of them anymore to be in business with them. Either some of them just aren't the right cultural fit, and sometimes again it's just not where the time and energy is best spent. Is spend it with the people who wanna grow.
Yeah.
And and I dealt with that even most recently at the other brokerages. Offering up my services and my support, and there was a lot of times it wasn't, not taken up on, and so it's hard because you want that how beneficial it can be for them, but again, you just can't force people to get involved.
Yeah, and I mean, even I hadn't planned on moving at all. I was like, yep, that's where I'm at, so
Yep.
I'm staying there. You called me to actually talk to me about something else, like the mortgage industry, a couple months prior, and then you said, yeah, I'm kind of looking at this, and then a couple months later, you say, hey, take a look at this, and we joke about this all the time. Where you text me and said, hey, I have this event, and I did. Now that I think about it, the way that you say it to me, I kind of sound like a jerk. But the plan was like, oh, I'm gonna go support Sam. He's a friend of mine. I'm gonna go support him at this thing. And what do you always say? Tell everybody when I tell that story.
Yeah, because you didn't think anybody would show up, so you wanted to be at least one person show up.
So at least one person would be there. But the room was full from a number of people, and we have how many people from that room that are with us now? Actually,
I haven't actually gone back to count, but at least half of those people probably that were there as guests, at least half of them have already come on board.
Yeah. So, and that was, it wasn't about you cold calling me. It wasn't about you pressuring me at all. It was conversation. And like I said, I knew your track record. And I mean, you took, a previous brokerage from 2,600 to 53,000 in an integral role. That obviously that I can't deny that. And one of the things that I want myself wanted to be a better recruiter. And, why reinvent the wheel when you have somebody that can kind of kind of help you and mentor you along the way.
I wish I had somebody who did that early on. I mean, again, I had the self taught, but when I did get it later, I had a recruiting coach. I had a business coach. I had two different coaches at that time, and then I had the owner of that brokerage too, who we were very involved in. In fact, at that time, shared an office with the co-owner there. Mm-hmm. So especially on my recruiting coaching calls, I had my coach in front of me on my computer. I had the owner of the company sitting behind me. So I'd be sweating, having two people right there listening to my calls for an hour straight to help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that you have? For me, I know it's for sure. But do you think that obviously the brokerage, you have to believe in the brokerage as well, but the fact that like when you get more agent centric, it becomes much easier to share and be like, hey, this just isn't my role. Because like the first role you got into, like, was it something that you truly were like, oh man, this is the best brokerage ever, or was there? I'd have to believe there's part of it saying like I'm getting paid for this, and maybe not even knowing what other brokerages were out there.
It was part of the I didn't know what I didn't know because it was my first recruiting role. So when they said, okay, well, we're going to pay you this and you'll get this in bonuses, I was like, okay, sounds good to me, right? I didn't know what to expect. In fact, for the first 8 months, no money showed up because it was, again, this is actually a good thing to share that, time on task over time, people were joining, but because I didn't see the result in dollars showing up yet. But when they did, right, it's kind of like people who are sending mailers to a neighborhood or your internet lead gen, whatever you do in your business, right? You don't expect results the very next day, which sadly a lot of agents, they give up on all this, after a month. They say that doesn't work, and then they go over here and try. So, but yeah, it took like 8 months for the first dollars to actually show up until I saw, okay, that was the beginning of, and it's never stopped. So, so I'm sorry, I'm losing track of the question there.
Oh no, just curious. Is it like how much does it help to have like a brokerage that you truly believe in as far as the recruiting?
So that company, like, where I got my first start, 100%, and all the companies I've been at since then, I've truly believed were the best at that time. Yeah. That company, by the way, where I first got my start, had a lot of similarities to the brokerage that we're at now, and is because it was really the only of its kind, but it wasn't a national brokerage. It was a local luxury boutique that did, they concierge services. They were really a do-for-you kind of brokerage. And so when this new company popped up and caught my eye, I had kind of a little flashback there. And it's funny because that company that doesn't exist anymore, they went out of business. And they didn't go to business because of their business model. It was because the owner got involved in some other businesses, and that kind of took his eye off of the one thing he was really, really great at. But it was, I tell you, the 10, 15 years later after that company closed, agents were still talking about that company. And so they would always say, those were the days, we missed that brokerage. And so when this new opportunity presented itself, it was literally going, okay, well, this is everything that company was and more. Because there was no rev share, equity share companies back then. That company didn't have a cap. So there was a lot of benefits that I saw that reminded me of what these top agents in that entire market there loved, and that it was so exclusive. I mean, people would call all the time trying to get into that company, and they couldn't. There was minimum production standards also just to get in there. So kind of, again, back to kind of where we're at now is, we don't take anybody and everybody. So there is some, it's kind of when if it's not available to everybody. Also, more people want to be a part of something like that too. So it's that allure, but it is that the benefits. It was just, again, I don't become a part of something just again because it's an available role or that's good enough. It works for me. I've got to truly believe in it and believe that it is the best out there for everybody.
Yeah. When you mentioned that part, I've heard you say it a couple times about we are a little bit more expensive, monthly at least, than some of the other brokerages, but it was by design.
Yeah.
Because it is not that we're kicking anybody out, but almost that you want the people that are all in to kind of come in. So I do like that. Do you have like one thing outside of like making it part of your business plan, all that stuff? do you have like one thing that you would tell someone who is either an active recruiter or somebody who'd want to get into like the recruiting game? Any like one tip?
I'd say it's build a relationship, because of that timing, right? Is even if it never happens. I mean, I have some people that I've been talking to my entire career, and again, like we mentioned earlier, it stung before. Now I'm like, if they never join, that's okay. Again, I'm about the relationship, because maybe it's never the right time for them, but maybe there might be a right time for somebody they know.
Yeah.
So and even it's back to the expectation that there's, again, I have no expectation. That's really it now. So for me, I say build a relationship, and no expectations, and nobody's going to be hurt over that either,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
well, this doesn't work or anything like that. It's, well, just like real estate sales. Next, you're going to get no's. That's okay. Go on to the next one. Keep going.
Awesome. Well, if anybody wanted to reach out to you to, schedule time to talk, or, maybe they have a question about recruiting, or maybe they themselves are looking for a change, what's the best place for them to find you?
I'd say, I'm available on Facebook, Instagram. Joinepic.com is a great place to learn more about our model. But yeah, I'm available really. And any medium is totally fine by me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank
I appreciate it. Always great time chatting with you.
Same here. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.